You're either here because you live for making focaccia and you need some new topping ideas, or because you've never made it before and you are praying this is the recipe that finally works. Well, good news for both of you, this video is exactly what you need. I'm showing my foolproof focaccia recipe. Seriously, anyone can make it. Plus 3 recipe ideas that will make you fall even deeper in love with focaccia. So whether you're a seasoned pro or you've never touched a ball of dough before, this recipe is about to change your focaccia game forever. So let's get into it. First up, we've got my pepperoni and hot honey focaccia. It's cheesy, it's spicy, and it's totally delicious. What I love about this specific recipe is that it can act as a full-on dinner or as a side dish. So I'm going to start by walking you through my super simple focaccia recipe. And for those of you who are focaccia pros, then feel free to skip to the next chapter where you'll learn more about the flavor side of things. Now, we're using strong white bread flour for this focaccia recipe. I love this Marriages brand, but honestly, you can use whatever you fancy. There are several reasons why we need to use bread flour over plain flour, but the main reason is because bread flour has a higher protein content of around 12 to 14% compared to plain flour, which has around 9 to 11%. And essentially, the more protein the flour has, the more gluten it contains, which provides strength and elasticity to the dough. But look, I'll be honest, like if you're really desperate to make focaccia and the only thing you've got is plain flour, you can just use it and your focaccia will still taste good. It just might be softer, less chewy, and possibly a bit flatter. Right, so for our dough recipe, you want to add 400 milliliters of water. To get the right temperature, I tend to combine 200 milliliters of boiling water with 200 milliliters of cold water. To that, we'll add 7 grams of maple syrup or sugar, 7 grams of instant yeast, 7 grams of salt, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and 500 grams of bread flour. Now, I just want to flag something because it's caught me out so many times on my focaccia making journey. Make sure your yeast has not gone past its use by date. It actually goes off surprisingly quickly. Like if you're just storing in your cupboard, it will go off within a matter of months. Although that seems like a long time. If you don't make bread that often, you might say, oh, I've got some yeast in the back of the cupboard. Nah, hun, that will probably have gone off. Just saying. And then it won't work, and then it'll just be a really sad story, you know? So either buy a fresh packet of instant yeast or just make sure to check the use by date on the back of your packet. To combine the dough, I'm actually using my Lakeland mixture, which I adore. It's got a dough hook as an attachment, which just makes life so much easier. But don't worry, later on in the video, I'm going to show you how to combine the dough without a mixer and just kitchen utensils. You want to start the mixer on a low setting and let it combine gently, scrape down the sides of the bowl so that everything combines well, and now you can kind of see that the dough is pretty well mixed. Another issue you may have found when making focaccia in the past is the proofing side of things. So apparently the perfect temperature for proofing focaccia is between 24 and 27 degrees, which is like 75 to 80 Fahrenheit. Now this range allows for the optimal yeast activity, giving the dough time to develop in flavor and also for it to rise. But like many people, it's winter currently and our flat is probably at around 18 degrees, so that's just not warm enough for the dough to rise. So a really good trick for this is get your oven and turn the light on, only the light, in your oven. What it does is it creates a really nice temperature that replicates a room temp for your dough to rise in. So if wherever you are is 24 to 27 degrees, then you're absolutely fine. But if it's not and it's winter like me, then make sure you do this oven light method. Okay, so once our dough is combined, place a tea towel over the top and into the oven. Leave that to rise for about 10 minutes and then remove it and fold the dough. You can wet your hands for this, by the way, with some water to just stop it from sticking so much. But essentially what you want to do is lift and fold the focaccia dough, then turn the bowl slightly and repeat. You want to do around 8 to 10 folds and then place it back into the oven for another 10 minutes. Now, once again, bring it out the oven, do the folding method, place it back into the oven for another 10 minutes, then bring it back out again, do the folding method. Essentially, you want to do the folding method 3 times, which would take you 30 minutes basically. Then after the 3rd time, get your baking tray and drizzle with olive oil. I'm using a 13 by 9 inch baking dish, but you could also use a metal tray with edges around the side of about like 1 or 2 inches tall. Add the focaccia dough into the dish and spread it out. Then you want to cover it with a tea towel again and leave it to rise in the oven with the light on for 2 hours. While the dough is rising, it's time to make our pizza sauce. Place on medium heat and then add in 2 sliced shallots. Now you guys know I love using shallots, but honestly feel free to use white onions or red onions. It's just a personal preference. Add in 3 finely chopped garlic cloves. If you've only got garlic granules, then use half a teaspoon of them. Give everything a good stir and then leave to fry for 5 to 10 minutes on kind of low to medium heat until the shallots have softened and slightly caramelized. Time to add in our tomato passata. We're using 200 milliliters here. Then you want to add in 2 teaspoons of dried oregano and give everything a really good stir. You can alternatively use dried parsley or mixed herbs as well. Next, pour in half a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, half a teaspoon of sugar, salt and pepper. Now the balsamic vinegar adds a really lovely acidity to it, and then we use the sugar to kind of balance out all the flavours. Honestly, it is so good. Now once that sauce comes to a boil, reduce it down to low heat and leave it to simmer for 20 to 30 minutes. Make sure to give it a stir now and again because you don't want the sauce to catch at the bottom. You can also add in a little bit of water if you feel like it's getting really thick, or just turn it off. After 20 to 30 minutes, just turn off the heat and leave it and set it aside. Now once our focaccia has been doing its thing for 2 hours, remove the dish from the oven. As soon as you take the focaccia out the oven, make sure to preheat the oven to 180 degrees fan or 400 Fahrenheit. While your oven is heating, drizzle your focaccia dough with more olive oil and then place your fingers into the dough and dimple down into the dough. Does that make sense? You just kind of go like, chop, 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 chop. It's really fun. It's like the most fun thing about focaccia. You want to try and create like little air bubbles and texture within the dough. Next up, sprinkle half the mozzarella cheese over the dough, then top with the tomato sauce. Spread it all over the dough, then top with the rest of the grated mozzarella. Place down your pepperoni or chorizo slices, and then top with jalapenos. Place in the oven for 30 minutes and be patient. Now I've said this before, but I'll say it again because every single person's oven is different. So hopefully you know your oven, and if it, for example, tends to be overly hot, then reduce the temperature by like 10 degrees. And if it's unusually cold, then increase the temperature by 10 degrees. Hopefully you kind of get what I mean. Okie dokie, time to remove the focaccia from the oven, and would you look at that. While you're leaving it to cool, make your hot honey by combining honey and chili flakes. Place it in the microwave for around 30 seconds or until it's bubbling and infused, then drizzle it all over your focaccia. Now time to slice up the focaccia. It should be soft, squidgy, chewy and airy all at the same time, and the flavours should be out of this world. I really can't wait for you guys to try this one, so please let me know in the comments if you give it a go. I just want to take a quick second to thank you for watching this video. I'm very new on my YouTube journey, so if you are enjoying this video so far, I'd be really grateful if you could subscribe and join this little foodie community. I plan on sharing hundreds of food related videos that will hopefully just add loads of fun and value to your life and make your time in the kitchen more exciting and enjoyable. So thank you so much in advance if you choose to subscribe. The next recipe on this focaccia journey is a sweet treat, and it's inspired by my time in New York City. We had the most incredible peanut butter jelly donut. So it had like peanut butter jelly inside of the donut, and then it was like had a gorgeous kind of sweet glaze. It was so good. So I just had to recreate it and put it into focaccia form. And when I tell you that it's delicious, it's delicious. So we follow the same steps as our last recipe. We make a classic focaccia dough. The only difference with this recipe is that we're gonna actually add 10 grams of maple syrup into the dough rather than 7 grams. So just make a little mental note of that. So once you've made the dough, let it to rise, done all the folding, and then transferred it into your baking dish and let it rise for a couple of hours. Time to drizzle with olive oil, and again, dimple it and place it in a preheated oven for 30 minutes. While your focaccia is cooking, you wanna prepare the glaze. So combine 150 grams of powdered sugar in a bowl with half a teaspoon of vanilla essence and 3 tablespoons of milk. Give it all a really good whisk until there are no lumps. You can also sift the powdered sugar into the bowl if you'd like, but mine was in the dishwasher, so I just whisked like really hard. It should be silky smooth. Feel free to taste it and adjust based on your preferences. Once your naked focaccia is cooked to perfection, remove it from the oven and transfer to a chopping board or clean service. Now, time to get a chopstick or a metal straw like the one I'm using and make around 24 holes in the focaccia at evenly spread spots. And you want the holes to go about 3/4 of the way through the focaccia. You want to leave about that much at the bottom of the focaccia, but you want the hole to be like this big. Does that make sense? Next up, get yourself a piping bag or just a regular sandwich bag and add around 3 tablespoons of peanut butter, crunchy or non-crunchy, totally up to you. I'd highly recommend using a nozzle for this, but if you don't have one, then just make sure to open up the focaccia and like squeeze it in quite roughly. Now make sure to squeeze the peanut butter only halfway, as we're going to fill the rest of the hole with the jam. So as we did with the peanut butter, fill a piping bag with 3 tablespoons of raspberry jam. I love the tanginess from raspberry jam, but you can honestly just use whatever you want. Like if you want to use strawberry, go for it. Blueberry, go for it. So fill the holes with raspberry jam until they're full to the brim. It should mean that each bite that you have is like half peanut butter, half jelly with the glaze on top. Honestly, so good. Okay, so lastly, drizzle over the sweet glaze until the whole focaccia is covered. Brush the glaze so it's covering the sides, edges, holes, everything. We're then gonna leave this to cool in the fridge until it's hardened. The end result will give you this perfect focaccia glazed peanut butter jelly situation. The dough is chewy, fluffy, and packed with peanut butter and raspberry jam with a vanilla glaze on top, and it's simply delicious. I met some friends of mine for a run, and I actually took them like a little container full of this focaccia as a post-run snack. and they devoured it. Yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this one. Okay, so for our next focaccia recipe, we're making my cheesy garlic chimichurri focaccia. Now, chimichurri, for those of you who don't know, is a vibrant, herbaceous, slightly spicy sauce from Argentina and Uruguay. It's typically used to complement steak, chicken, other types of meat, as well as like roasted vegetables, but it also works gloriously with focaccia. So let's get into it. Okay, so for this recipe, I'm gonna be showing you how to combine the dough without using a dough hook or a mixer. I'm just going to be showing you how to use it with kitchen utensils that you'll absolutely have in your kitchen. So get yourself a large mixing bowl and add in the warm water, salt, maple syrup, instant yeast, olive oil and bread flour, the classic recipe. Then you want to grab a fork and gently stir the dough in a clockwise motion for about a minute or until the dough has formed. As you can see here, we end up with a rough ball of dough that's just well combined. Essentially, you want to pretend that you are the dough hook. So you want to kind of just go, and just keep going. Like, it's quite repetitive, but try not to go like, you know, try not to kind of change up the way you're stirring. Just be repetitive. Just keep going, and eventually the dough will form. Cover the bowl with a tea towel and place in the oven with the light on. Leave to rest for 10 minutes, then fold for 8 rounds, then leave to rest for another 10 minutes. Repeat this so that you've got your folded dough 3 times. The dough should look larger and puffier every single time. Then you want to leave the dough to rest for an hour in your mixing bowl with the tea towel on top in your lit oven. Meanwhile, we want to make our garlic parsley butter. So in a bowl, combine salted butter with 5 cloves of minced garlic, 10 grams of parsley finely chopped, and half a teaspoon of chili flakes. Place in the microwave for 30 seconds and then give everything a mix. It should smell incredible. Once the dough has rested for an hour, get your baking dish and drizzle with olive oil. Transfer the dough into the dish, spread out to the edge of the dish. Sprinkle half the mozzarella cheese onto the focaccia and then top with the spicy garlic parsley butter. Now fold either end into the center, overlapping each other. And then same goes for the corners, making a little parcel. Then you want to flip the whole thing over, spread the dough into the corners once again, and leave to rise for another hour. With a tea towel on top, of course. Once it's been resting for another hour, remove from the oven and preheat the oven to 180 degrees fan, 400 Fahrenheit. Now I've chosen to cook focaccia in this dish without any baking paper. But if you're nervous your dish isn't non-stick, then just remove the focaccia, place it onto something else, and then place a piece of parchment paper down into your dish and then put the focaccia back into the dish. That way you can remove it easily once cooked. Okay, now drizzle some olive oil onto your hands and make the dimples into the focaccia. Then wash your hands, sprinkle the remaining mozzarella cheese onto the focaccia and bake in the oven for 30 minutes. Meanwhile, you want to make your chimichurri sauce by combining finely chopped parsley, finely chopped coriander, minced garlic, finely chopped shallots, finely chopped chili, olive oil, red wine vinegar, salt, and sugar. Now, for those of you who have that kind of coriander gene where it makes you taste like soap, where you think it tastes like soap, feel free to omit it. It's completely a choice. I just really love coriander, and the combination of parsley and coriander is like chef's kiss to me. So leave that out if you don't fancy it. Just use parsley. You can also add more or less chili depending on your spice tolerance and also depending on the chili. So for example, actually when I made this chimichurri, I added in more than 1 chili because that chili wasn't that spicy. But sometimes I'll add in a red chili and it'll be so hot. So just do it with 1 chili to start. And then if you're like, I could have a little bit more spice in this, then add more spice. But if you're like, yeah, just play it by ear. Now that your focaccia is out of the oven, the cheese is melted and gooey and delicious. Place it onto a chopping board and top it with your chimichurri sauce. I'm sorry, but how gorgeous is that? She is a work of art. Now gently slice your focaccia and look at that cheese ball. You've got the fresh chimichurri and the garlicky cheesy center with the doughy bread. Oh my goodness, my boyfriend could not stop eating this one, I'll tell you. As always, let me know in the comments below if you give it a go. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, why not check out the video right here? See you next time and happy focaccia baking.